My name is Tasneem Ahmed. I'm a gastroenterologist. I'm going to start with a short dua, and then we'll start the program, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Ya hayyu ya qayyum bi rahmatika astaghithu aslih li sha'ni kullaha wa la takilni ila nafsi tarfata ayn. Before we start about the program, it's Residency Interview 101. I'd like to just briefly talk about AMWPA. This is the organization that is hosting this program. So this is an organization, it stands for American Muslim Women Physicians. And it's an organization of female physicians, dentists, healthcare providers, sort of a whole gamut of different professions in healthcare. And the goal of this organization is entirely centers around preventative medicine. And I'm going to share with you just a number of things that this group has accomplished over the past year. And I probably will just skim the surface because, mashallah, tabarakallah, this organization is very active. First and foremost, it's every year, it has donated to the North Texas and Tarrant County Food Bank during the month of Ramadan. This past year, it was approximately $20,000 in donations to Feed the Hungry program. They've been very prolific throughout the community in terms of distributing surgical and N95 masks, distributing a total of just over 1,500 COVID vaccines, just over 500 flu vaccines. They've done just under 20 educational lectures similar to this style. They do virtual CPR classes. They have significantly involved the youth with the youth mask drive. And we've started a mentorship program for high school students, college students who are interested in the healthcare field. And they have launched their own YouTube channel. So all this program, as well as any of the programs we've done over the past year, you can find them all on our YouTube channel. And last but not least, we dole out a number of merit awards, approximately 15 merit awards. I think they total probably around $10,000 to $15,000, given all through donations through the AMWPA. And we also distribute stethoscopes to medical students in Fort Worth. So alhamdulillah, it's a very, very prolific organization. So this program today really centers on residency interviewing. We have a great panel today. I'm a gastroenterologist. I am relatively local. I grew up in Houston. I went to college at UT Austin. I went to medical school at UNT TCOM. I did my residency in internal medicine at Cleveland Clinic, and then I went on to do my GI fellowship in Cleveland Clinic. And then my first job out of fellowship was at UTSouthwestern. I was there for almost 10 years in the Inflammatory Bowel Disease Center. And last year, in the midst of COVID, I was recruited to start an IBD program at Harris in Fort Worth. So I'm going to start by introducing our next panelist. This is Dr. Zubair Syed. He is an associate professor in the Department of Family and Community Medicine at UTSouthwestern. He also serves as the department's residency program director. So we're super excited and honored to have him on our panel. He specializes in primary care, diabetes, hypertension, and obesity. He earned his medical degree at Al Amin Medical College in Bijapur, India. He then went on to complete a residency in family medicine through the Mid-Hudson Family Practice Residency Program, then received advanced training through a fellowship at the National Institute for Program Director Development. His professional interests center around resident education, curriculum development, faculty development. If you look at a CV, it's notable for a multitude of awards in teaching and leadership. So Dr. Syed, jazakallah for being on this panel today, and thank you for your time. Our next panelist is Dr. Nilofar Syed. She's originally from Cleveland, Ohio. She received her medical training at Case Western Reserve in Cleveland. She went on to Brown to complete her internal medicine residency. And then she returned to Cleveland for her rheumatology fellowship. She is an assistant professor at UTSouthwestern as well. She is widely published and has been actively involved with AMWPA in multiple leadership and mentorship roles. And then our next panelist is Dr. Zahid Ahmed. He earned his medical degree at Tulane University School of Medicine. He completed both a residency in internal medicine and a fellowship in endocrinology and metabolism at UTSouthwestern. He has trained sort of with the bigwigs at UTSouthwestern, including Dr. Helen Hobbs. His research centers around cholesterol metabolism and genetics. His clinical interest centers around familial hypercholesterolemia, among other things in endocrinology and metabolism. He joined the UTSouthwestern faculty in 2010. He is board certified in internal medicine, endocrinology, metabolism, and diabetes. His research is funded by the NIH. He works with colleagues to identify families with these conditions in order to better understand their underlying genetic causes and ultimately to improve patient outcomes. So these are our physicians on our panel. We're also super excited to have two residents on our panel. The first is Dr. Madiha Khan. She is currently a PGY3 chief resident at Houston Methodist in internal medicine. She went to college at UT Arlington and medical school at Liberty College of Osteopathic Medicine, and she has plans, inshallah, applying to cardiology. And last but not least, we have Dr. Syeda Khadija. She is a PGY1 in internal medicine in Creighton University in Phoenix. She went to medical school in Karachi Medical and Dental College. She and Dr. Syed are probably the closest in terms of residency interviews. She just finished doing this a year ago. So this is our esteemed panel. I'm super excited. I think first we will start with Dr. Syed. He is going to go over the application process and give us some pearls of wisdom on the application.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed, and thank you everybody in the panel today. And welcome everybody to this meeting. I'm going to be sharing my screen. I'll probably take about 10 minutes of your time. Tell me if you see the screen. Just one of you. Yep. Okay, good. I'll probably take about 10 minutes of your time. Just a little bit of introduction. As Dr. Ahmed said, I'm going to be looking at this from the lens of a program director, but also keep in mind, also as an IMG. So I understand all the difficulties that we have to go through, or IMGs have to go through as we start application process and we go through the interview process. So I'm really appreciative of AMWPA to invite me to this session today. All right, so I'm going to talk about what we review for. I'll talk about how an ERAS application looks. Now, I realize that the application has already been submitted. ERAS has already started. The interview season has commenced. But I think it doesn't hurt to really figure out what some of the red flags are that we look for and how we look for in terms of what a ideal ERAS application should be. And so I'll go through all of these. I'm not going to go talk about them. But some hard facts before we start. Keep in mind, the total number of PGY1 positions that were offered in last year's match was about 35,000. And we had almost around 42,500 applicants that were active applications for those spots. Now, the difference you really see is this. USMD seniors, USDO seniors were about 27,000. And if you look at the match rate, they have about a 93 and a 89%. And the piece where we need to focus on for the IMGs, and now just to make the definitions a little bit clear, is that the NRMP ERAS sort of defines IMGs as US citizen IMGs and then non-US citizen IMGs. And as you can see, the difference really ends up being in the match rate as compared to the US seniors. So using that, one of the things that came out was that for the 2021 match, and I'm sorry about the typo, it should be 2021, for US IMGs, the top 5 specialties were IM, family medicine, peds, psych, and emergency medicine. And for non-US IMGs, and the distinction really is in the definition, US IMGs, US citizens, that have trained abroad versus non-US citizens that ideally usually need a visa. And so when you're really looking at specialties to apply to, these are some of the hard data that you got to think through to figure out where the best bang is for the buck in that sense. All right. So one of the most important things, and sometimes it becomes difficult for us as an IMG, is to choose a medical specialty. And as it said over here, the journey of a specialty choice is different for everybody, but this is very critical in terms of what you're planning to do essentially for the rest of your life. And this also factors into your residency application, because what it ends up being is that you have to show your commitment. Your application ends up being a complete package. And part of that package is to show commitment to the specialty that you're applying to, because this is what we as program directors on the other side, or anybody who's reviewing your application, will look for in your application and an applicant. So you've got to sort of tailor your opportunities to experience your specialty in multiple settings in medical school or even post-graduation. If there's a gap in between from when you graduated to when you're applying now, you have to use that time very judiciously. Okay, talk a little bit about CV. ERAS's CV is actually in a pretty decent format the way they've laid it out. But you have to be able to understand how we look at a CV and how that sort of reflects on your overall application in the big picture. You got to keep it short. You have to be concise. You have to make it orderly. You have to highlight what's special about you. And if there's anything in your CV that is more important than all of these, it's being entirely honest about yourself. If you have questions, if you have uncertainties about certain areas in your CV, ask somebody, get expert advice. This is usually how a ERAS CV is structured. I'm just giving you an idea, but there's a couple of things here that end up being a little bit important. When you're looking at your education, residency application and program directors and reviewers will actually look and see what are your dates of attending. And then one of the biggest flags ends up being if your medical education was either training, was extended or interrupted. There's absolutely no harm in saying yes if it was, because at some point it always comes out. Whether it's in your what's called the MSBE, the Medical Student Performance Evaluation, whether it's in your transcript, something or the other always talks about if your education was extended or interrupted. So always be open about that. Addition to that, we always look to see whether you are a member of an honorary or a professional society. For us in family medicine, it's the American Academy of Family Physicians, internal medicine candidates, the ACP, the AMA, American Academy of Pediatrics. This actually tells us that, yes, you are vested into that particular specialty, and it's something that you really want to. Again, you're selling yourself as much as we on the other side want to have you. And so, previously when I applied, it all used to be about USMLE scores. It's no longer only about USMLE scores anymore. It's about you as a person, you as a resident, and what you will bring as a team player into a residency program. So you have to have some sense, we have to have some sense of what you actually do, what else other than being a great resident you're able to bring to the picture, you're able to bring to the table. And then publications, pubs is extremely important in the sense that if you have done research, and again, this all depends on what specialty you're applying to and where you're applying to. There's a wide variety of distance in between if you're applying to a community program versus if you're applying to a university program, and research requirements sort of vary. But if you have research, and you should have research experience, always be sure that you are doing this, you're documenting your research appropriately, in the sense that it has to be an appropriate bibliography in a sense. I can't tell you like how many research bibliographies I've seen that are not in the proper format, and it makes a difference. Okay, so MSBs, they are a critical part of your residency training. They are different from transcripts, and unfortunately, sometimes it ends up happening that we end up seeing medical stool transcripts where MSBs should be. And the issue ends up always being that there's a huge variability in the format and information in an MSB for IMGs. Again, this is not your fault, but the way evaluators look at your transcripts and they look at your MSBs, some MSBs from outside schools end up being not really informative, and that ends up being sort of a negative thing for applicants when we review those applications. Now, next step, letters of recommendation. It's a key element of the strength of your application. First and foremost, ask people who know you well. It doesn't really matter if it's somebody who's a program director, a chair, regardless of someone's rank or title, a very strong letter goes a long way. And this is extremely important. Having a variety of faculty is important. And what I mean by that is that it shouldn't only be a person who's writing your letter from that particular specialty that you are applying to. That has to be there. At least one of your letters has to be from that specialty. But it's really nice if you have a variety of faculty that will write letters from you telling us that resident X or student X, Y, or Z would be a great internist, or an internal medicine resident, would be a great pediatrician, would be a great family doc, would be a great OBGYN. Please do not ask a letter from a resident or a fellow. This happens, it's not as uncommon as we would think, and I've actually seen letters from residents and fellows. The way to do this is to have the resident or the fellow talk to your attending, give them more details, and have your attending write your letters. And then it's especially important to submit exactly the right number of letters, and as much as possible, have your letters be specialty specific. Now, sometimes as IMGs, it becomes a little difficult to do that, but if you're really committed to a specialty, your letters should be specific about those. Applicant X would be, again, a great family doc, would be a great internal medicine resident, would be a great pediatrician. So very important to have. So there are many rubrics that different programs use. And so, I just put one out there that talks about what's a strong letter and what would really go high up in the hierarchy, all the way down to a good comment letter, but not specialty specific. It's a generic letter which can be used for any specialty. So reviewers will actually look at this and sort of grade these and at the end when we're making our rank order list. If there's anything that makes or breaks your application, it's your personal statement. And this is extremely, extremely important. You may not meet all of the criteria that the program is looking for. You may have some red flags in your application, but if your personal statement is strong enough, it can actually make up for quite a bit of this. It gives the faculty members and the residents insight into who you are, what's unique about you, and whether you're going to be a good fit. So point in case, show your personality, show your experience, show your goal, pick a formative experience in your training, but don't make it too long. Ideally, not more than one page. The amount of applications we get, nobody really has time to really give that much of detailed thought into a personal statement that is more than one page. So you have to be concise. You have to be able to sell yourself within that one page. And keep in mind, one of my APDs is actually an English major. And so good writing gets noticed. You have to be very careful what you're talking about, right? Complete sentences, avoid repetitive sentence structure, avoid using jargon. Don't assume that we know all your acronyms that you're talking about. Use a dictionary and a spell check. The number of mistakes we see in an application, it matters in the big picture. And then this is also very important. If there are any issues in your CV, your personal statement is an appropriate place to address those. If you got a gap, if something else has happened that's a red flag, this is the place that you would address anything that you want to talk about. You have to focus what you learned from those experiences and sort of pivot and turn those around in a positive way in your personal statement. If I see personally something on your CV ERAS application, but then I don't see that addressed anywhere else from you personally, that's a red flag in the big picture. I would encourage you guys to go into this tool. It's called the Residency Explorer tool. It actually allows you to explore and compare your profile to applicants who matched at each program. You'll have to log in and make an account. But essentially, the Residency Explorer tool tells you, here's some of the characteristics of people that have matched already into residencies and how it compares to what you have. And what are some of the areas that you need to look at. Now, one of the questions always comes up, how many programs should I apply to? Unfortunately, there is no magic number of programs to apply to. IMGs end up applying anywhere between 50 to 150 programs. There has been some data, hard data on US MD and DOs. And for them, sort of the sweet spot ends up being about between 20 to 30 programs, which tells them that their return on investment, meaning they usually end up getting into one of their higher ranked positions. That's sort of the number. But there's no magic number for IMGs, unfortunately. But statistics, actually, hard data tells you that candidates who rate more than one specialty are less likely to match as high on their list or not at all. So again, this brings me back to my original point. You have to sort of try to pick a specialty where you see yourself for the next 20, 30 years, and then actually focus on that specialty on that application. And I'm going to stop here. The next step is talking really about interview day and your interview interactions. But keep in mind, again, I'll just say one sentence over here. When you are interviewing, it's not just the panel that is interviewing you. It's the residents that are interviewing you. It's the staff that are looking out to see how you're actually interacting with everybody. We're looking at nonverbal cues when you're there. We're looking to see what your interpersonal skills are. All of this ends up being part of the package, which is when then we determine whether this person would be a good fit or not. And with that, I'm going to end. Thank you.
Thank you. That was excellent, Dr. Syed. I think in the interest of time, we'll sort of defer questions till the end. We'll then go on to Drs. Nilofar, Syed, then Dr. Zahid, Ahmed. I think you guys have a presentation in the actual interview. That was excellent though, Dr. Syed, Jazakallah.
Yes, hello, my name is Nilofar Syed, and let me just share my screen. So just one second here. Okay, can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're going to talk about, do's and don'ts for interviewing. And so the first thing you want to do before you interview is to practice. That's one of the biggest myths about interviewing, is that you just show up and you don't have to really prepare for it. But you really want to think about the answers to the questions you may be asked. We will go over some of the questions in the later slides, but you also want to practice with your family and friends too before you interview. The other things you want to do is be polite, be engaged. That will show that you're interested in the program where you're interviewing at. You also want to be confident in yourself and your abilities. This is a time to show off, that you've worked hard to get where you are at. And so you want to make sure that you let the program know that you're a great fit to be a part of that program. And it's also very important to dress professionally. This may seem very obvious, but you'll be surprised. Sometimes applicants don't realize that they're supposed to, dress formally. And so it's recommended to wear a suit, a tie. There might be other social events that you might be required to attend, either the day before there might be a dinner, or even the day of the interview. And so for those occasions, you can also dress like business casual, but you do want to dress appropriately. It's also important to ask questions. So you never want to say, I don't have any questions for the program director or for the other faculty that you're interviewing with, because that just comes across that you really don't have any interest in their program. It's also important to take notes. So it's okay to take a pen and paper, a notepad with you during the interview, so you can write down things that you like about the program or you don't like. And this is also helpful for you too, especially if you're going on multiple interviews, so that you can remember what things that you liked about certain programs. And it's very important to know your CV and the things that are on it. So you want to review your CV ahead of time, because they will ask specific questions off of your CV about prior research experience, volunteer experience, work experience. So you have to be prepared to answer those questions. And always, send thank you emails or letters to everyone that you have interviewed with. Sometimes that's easy to forget, but that does show that you're interested in the program and that you're appreciative for their time that they took to interview you. So things that you don't want to do. So you don't want to be late, obviously, so that does reflect badly. You don't want to be distracted. So especially oftentimes the programs, they will give you an overview of their program. So you don't want to, look like you're distracted or on your phone. You want to be paying attention and engaging during that time. You don't want to be unprepared. So as I was saying earlier, you want to practice for the interview. And you don't want to come across as arrogant. You don't want to act like you're too good for the program or that you're better than the other applicants. You want to be polite. Again, don't dress inappropriately. And it's also important not to speak negatively about other people. So either other applicants, you don't want to talk badly about them, or you don't want to talk about other programs, or even if there are things about the program where you're interviewing at, things that you may not like, you don't want to be talking negatively about those things. And the other thing is, Dr. Syed was also mentioning that you will also be meeting oftentimes residents during your interview. So, maybe during lunchtime, we'll get time to sit down with the residents, ask them questions, but you don't want to be very too casual as well, because they are still interviewing you too. So oftentimes the program directors will ask the residents for feedback on the applicants. So you do want to make sure you're still professional with the residents, and don't ask inappropriate questions. You don't want to be asking about vacation time or your salary and stuff like that during the interview. So now we'll get to, kind of the list of the common interview questions that you may be asked. And I divided it into different categories. So the first category is, are the personal questions. So one of the common questions that they do ask you about is, tell me more about yourself. So this is a very open-ended question. And so the nice thing is that you can talk about anything that you want about yourself, but it's something that they want to see what you think about yourself. So you do want to, make sure that you come across your personality, really what makes you. So this is not the time to focus on your academics, because they already have that in your CV, they have your application. So you don't want to just be, telling them what honors you have or what your GPA is. You do want to just show them kind of what makes you unique. They will also ask you about what are your strengths and your weaknesses. So this is also something that you want to be very genuine about your strengths. So if you say that you think of yourself as a leader, but there's nothing on your application or your CV that shows that you have a leadership experience, that just doesn't come across as being very genuine. So you want to pick things that that can show that you will be a good fit for that program, that you're like a team player, that you like to work with others, you work hard. And then also they will ask you if you have weaknesses. So it's not a good idea to just say you don't have any weaknesses, because that will come across as arrogant. You do want to mention something that, maybe it'll be something simple as, you may have a hard time delegating tasks to others, or you might have trouble with public speaking. But you want to show that you've taken steps to overcome those weaknesses and, have improved on those weaknesses. So that will come across much more positively versus, picking weaknesses. You don't want to say something like you're lazy or you don't like to work. I mean, that will obviously come across very negatively. They will also ask you questions about any problems in your academic record. So if for example, if you failed a class or you failed step one, just be prepared to explain it. Obviously, there may be certain times in your life where there were struggles or you weren't able to, that made you have like problems on your academic record, which is fine, but you just want to be prepared to explain it and show how you overcame those struggles and to get to where you are at today. And they'll also, as I said, ask specific items on your CV. So just be prepared to talk about those. Then they'll want to know more about you. So they'll want to know, what do you do in your free time? What are your hobbies? What are your interests? And they just want to see that you're a well-rounded person, that you have interests outside of medicine. They'll also ask what accomplishments you're most proud of. So this is the time to showcase yourself, especially if there are things that you're proud of, if you've won an award or something that, is not on your CV, you definitely want to talk about that. So the next category are the why questions. They will ask you, why did you become a doctor? So this, you don't want to be very general and vague. You don't want to say things like, I just want to help people, because then, sometimes interviewers will say, well, you could also go into nursing, or you could go into physical therapy to help people. So that's just too general of an answer. So you really want to think about, the personal experiences that you've had that have kind of led you to want to become a physician. And explain it that way. And the same thing about the questions that they ask about, are you interested in this specialty? They also want to know, what really drew you to this specialty. So having any personal experiences during your medical school rotations will be very helpful to really show them that why you're interested in the particular specialty that you're applying for. And they'll ask you as well, why are you interested in their program? So this is a time to, to do research on the program. So if there's certain strengths of the programs you like, then you want to show them that you've researched their program and that you're genuinely interested in their program. And then, of course, they'll ask you, why should they choose you? And this is the time where you really want to shine. You want to show that, you would be a good fit for the program. And, you want to tell them about things that will make you stand out from among the other applicants. So the next category is the future plans. So these are, they might ask this in different ways, but these are some samples of questions that they might ask. Do you want to have a career in research or academics? What are your plans after residency? Or where do you see yourself practicing? Or where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years? Long-term goals, or do you plan on pursuing a fellowship? So, this is not something you have to have everything planned out ahead of time. If you don't have a specific idea of what you want to do, it's okay. But you also don't want to answer these questions saying, I don't know. And, you do want to show them that you have thought about it, that you may be considering, this type of fellowship or this, career path, that you're at least thinking about it and seeing, that you have an interest in academics. And if you don't have an interest in academics, that's fine too. If you're interested in private practice, but at least that you've thought about it, because that's something that they also want to make sure that you're a fit, for their program. So if their program is very research heavy, but you don't have an interest in research, then you might not be the right fit for their program. And the next category is the situational questions. So these can sometimes be tough because they will ask about interesting cases that you've seen on your medical school rotations and what you've learned from it. So this is something definitely to think about, the cases that you've seen in medical school, and especially if you've had any published case reports, that would be great to talk about those, because then it shows that, what learning or what research you've done in terms of, the cases that you've seen. They might ask about challenging situations or times where you had to work under pressure or times that you made a mistake and how you handled it or how you fixed those situations. This doesn't have to apply to just the medical, realm. So if there was any personal situations where you had to deal with a challenging issue or struggle, then you can also talk about that too. So it's just that they just want to see how you handle things in times of stress and how you handle challenging situations. But they also might throw out hypothetical scenarios as well. So they might say, if you were on, on the medicine wards and you have a difficult patient with a certain scenario, they may ask, how would you handle that? Or if there was a conflict with a certain team member on the team, they might not be doing their job, how would you handle that? And the next, category are the random questions. So these can be very variable, but, I did get the first question asked to me, which was, what was the last book that I read? But they might also ask you, about your role model, who inspired you? They might ask it in another way, like, who is your hero and why? They also ask sometimes, if you didn't go into medicine, what other career paths would you go into? They also ask, tell me something interesting about yourself that is not on your application. So this is also something important to you. If there's other things that you've done and or you've, had other accomplishments, this is also the time to mention that to them, especially if it's not on your CV. They'll ask you to describe yourself in 3 words. So this too, you want to think about that, think about what things that you want to project about yourself to that program. What are your strengths? And they may ask questions about current events or healthcare related questions. And they may ask your opinion on certain things, certain topics, you know, they might like vaccine mandates. So it just kind of depends on what questions they ask, but you want to be prepared and have an answer in case, you know, and be up to date on the current events in case they ask you those type of questions. So there are also questions that you can ask during the interview. And so these are just some examples. You might want to ask them, you know, what kind of, you know, what proportion of time that you'll be spending in the general versus subspecialty rotations, or are there opportunities to do rotations abroad, or any opportunities for research or teaching? And then you can also ask them, it's, you know, certainly valid to ask them questions about the graduates, you know, from their program, you know, do they pursue careers in academics, or do they enter fellowships, and, you know, what kind of fellowships are they entering, or how residents are, you know, given feedback, or how they're evaluated. But it is very important to research the program that you're interviewing at. It's very easy to find information on their website, but it's something that, you know, if you go in without, you know, having any sort of question, it just doesn't show that you're very interested. So you definitely want to ask them. Even if you have multiple interviewers, it is good to have a question at least for each one so that it shows that you're interested. Okay, and then that's my section.
I'm Dr. Zahid Ahmed. Both the previous presenters, Dr. Syed and Dr. Syed, did great jobs in kind of setting up how you know, how the interview is, how the application process is. It's really important to listen to all those things. And then I'm gonna just spend a few slides on talking about, from the program's point of view, how you're going to be scored, and then one slide on some things that, you know, the interviewer is not allowed to actually ask you. That way, I want to make sure that everyone does know their rights, that there are some things that they're not allowed to ask. Now, what I have on the screen on this slide is just one program. There are many different programs and they all have different criteria, but there's one program that only looks at three basic criteria, three categories for the interview process, not for your whole application, but at least for the interview process. They're looking to see your ability to communicate, your likability, and your fit. You'll notice this program doesn't actually ask the interviewer to comment on your academic status, though they're not asking me as an interviewer, you know, does this person have good USMLE scores or good grades? That's something that's already part of your application. And so that's not the point of this interview per se, at least for this particular program. And then they score on a scale of 1 to 10. And I'll go through these and kind of give you a sense of what a 10 would be and what a 1 would be. Very few people actually get 10. This program that does it this way, they actually recommend that most people be scored between a 4 and an 8. 10 is kind of reserved for the best people, and almost no one gets a 1. 1 would be, you're kind of the scum of the earth, and why are you even walking into here? You know, you say something, that person might say something as silly as, you know, I went into medicine just to make money. You know, certainly don't ever say that. That'll just get you a 1 right away. If we go to the next slide.
Oh, hold on one second. There we go.
So here's the first category of ability to communicate. And, you know, a good communicator doesn't monopolize the conversation. You know, there's a good give and take. And I think in an interview, my opinion is that it should be about, you know, 60-40. The interviewee, you as the applicant, should be talking about at least 60% of the time, and the interviewer about 40% of the time. Now that's a little bit different than when I'm at a party or in a social situation. There, it's better to talk less, let the other person talk more, because it makes them feel important. And you can use that strategy in these interviews, but really they want to know who you are, and they can't know who you are unless you talk. Now, a poor communicator would be someone who interrupts the interviewer while they're talking or doesn't listen to questions. That's really easy to figure out, because if I ask you a question and you're answering something else, you clearly didn't listen. And you know, that reflects very poorly on the interviewee. I'm not sure I would want to work with someone like that, right? Someone who doesn't actually listen. You know, another characteristic of a better communicator is someone who's clear, concise, able to articulate one's strength and story in a compelling manner. So as Dr. Syed mentioned, you know, you're going to get asked, you know, tell me about yourself, a very open-ended question. And I ask that question on purpose because it gives me a lot of insight into how does this person think? What do they think is important in their life? How do they organize their story? We all have stories. We all have hardships. We all have accomplishments. How do they organize that in their own mind? Can they get that across to the interviewer and tell, what's going on, who they are? Do I get a strong sense of who they are? I also look for that opportunity. When I ask, tell me about yourself, I'm looking for also things that I can follow up on and ask you more questions about. If you tell me, you moved from here to here because of, or from this city to another city because of an opportunity, I might ask a few questions about that opportunity. I might ask, what did you do there? How did that turn out? Do you enjoy that particular opportunity or something? And then a poor communicator would be somebody who's very rapid or tangential. So some people do get nervous and they speak too quickly. That's okay. You eventually slow down. I don't worry too much about that. But then people who shift from topic to topic without any organization in the way they speak, that doesn't help. That's a sign of a poor communicator. That's going to be very difficult to work with on rounds. How will they tell me what the plan is for this patient if they can't stay on topic? We can go to the next slide. So likability, this is, we all want to be likable. That's like as a human being, we all really want others to like us. It's some kind of basic desire we have. And so, let that shine during these interviews. Show them the good parts of your personality. Hide the bad parts, but show them the good parts. Like Dr. Syed pointed out, one question you're going to be asked, that you may be asked, I don't ask this, but many interviewers do, is tell me your weaknesses. So you may want to say something like, I do have stage fright, and I actually did have a lot of stage fright. This didn't come up in my interviews when I was interviewing for residency, but I used to, as a student, I had a lot of stage fright, and I got over it by actually listening to my mentors, taking a lot of feedback, and just like anything else when you do in life, practice. Just practice. Take as many opportunities as you can to give talks. Don't be scared about it, and eventually the stage fright kind of goes away. You become confident. You know how to speak. You learn all these little tricks on how to speak well, how to put together good slides, et cetera, et cetera. What you don't want to say is, I have stage fright, but it's not my fault. It's my parents' fault because they always criticized me when I was a kid, or something like that. Don't say things like that. That doesn't help. And also, again, when we're working on a team in the hospital and something goes wrong, because things always go wrong, not always, sorry, but they often go wrong. Something will go wrong. When they go wrong, are you going to be someone who's going to understand what your role was in the problem? And I'm not saying it's your fault, but will you understand what your role was? Will you work on that and try to get better? That's something that's really, really important to those of us who work with residents. And I work with residents on the hospital as well as in research. And I need to know that, when they make a mistake, they'll own up to it, they'll understand, and they'll move forward. We can go to the next slide. And then fit. So, a person who fits well is someone who clearly has passion for medicine. They're hardworking, they're easy to talk to, fun to be around. A poor fit would be someone who lacks motivation. So, as Dr. Syed said, don't say that you're a lazy person. That is not a good thing to ever tell during an interview. Someone who's not curious about things, someone who thinks that they're smarter than everybody else or knows all the answers already. Again, this interview is not for you to tell us how smart you are. It's not for you to solve all our problems that we have with our residency program, because every residency program has problems. This is for you to show that you are able to have a conversation, show that you could be a good fit, that you're going to be a hardworking person, that you have worked well with others in the past, and you will again in the future, which I'm sure all of you will. So we can go to the last slide, which I thought this was important because we talk a lot about what you might be asked, but it's also important to know your rights and what the interviewer is not supposed to ask. They're not supposed to ask questions about your demographics. So age, race, religion, socioeconomic status, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, national origin. They shouldn't be asking you, where are you from? That's not it. They can ask you, tell me about yourself, and you can volunteer that you're from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, wherever, Saudi Arabia, wherever you're from, and that can open up questions. That's okay. If you bring it up, that's fine, but they're not allowed to bring it up. They're also not allowed to ask questions about your family. So nothing about ancestry, marital status, your kids, your plan for future children. That should not influence how you're accepted into a residency program. And then similarly, personal issues like physical, mental disabilities, appearance, activities, the probe for personal affiliations, and they cannot ask you about other programs either. They shouldn't be asking you, where are you going to rank this program? What other programs are you applying to, etc. Now, again, you can volunteer these things, as I've written at the bottom, and that can open up questions, but they should not be asking you these. And I'll stop there. There's a website at the bottom that actually lists all the stuff and has recommendations on what you should do if you do get asked these questions. So I will stop there, and I think the next section is for our residents to share their wonderful insight, since they're the closest to doing these interviews.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. That was excellent. Super informative session so far. Okay, we have Dr. Madiha Khan and Dr. Syeda Khadija. These are our two medical residents.
I'll be happy to share some advice from my end. So I'm involved in the recruitment process for our program at UTSouthwestern Methodist, and there are certain things, peripherally around the interview that you can kind of keep an eye out for. And the first thing is your interview really starts with the first communication with the coordinator that sent you the invite. Responding in a timely fashion, reading over your emails and making sure you're not making any mistakes or lackadaisical about it is actually pretty important. The other thing is, there's going to be like socials. I think Dr. Syed mentioned they may be, offered as optional, but you should really go to them, because that gives an opportunity for the residents to see how you are and if you would be a good fit. And it, more importantly, gives you an opportunity to see if you would be a good fit to that program. One thing, to look out for at these socials and, even on your interview day, even through Zoom or virtual interview, is if they're showcasing their interns to you. Is it just the upper levels and the chief residents that you're seeing? Because that could be a red flag that you want to look out for. And, maybe there's a reason they're not showing you the more like to the ground residents and interns. And then one thing I think that can kind of put you above some others, especially if you're really interested in the program, look out for residents that you may know, and on your interview day, get their emails and reach out to them, because a good word from the residents that you interviewed with can go a very long way, especially with these virtual interviews where people really don't know and they can't really see your whole body cues if you're really interested in the program. And I think that really shows interest, and it may actually help you in getting higher ranked.
That was great. That's actually very helpful tips. I think Dr. Khadija, do you have any?
Yes, so I hope you can hear me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So I just got done with the residency interviews myself, and I'm just a very new intern. So I'm going to share a couple of things that really helped me. And this, we have a wonderful panel here, and everybody, talked at length at what should be done and what shouldn't be done. A couple of things. I know this is a very daunting process, the whole applying as an IMG and then expecting to match and everything, it's very daunting. I would say just to enjoy the process. If you're literally right there sitting in front of them, showing your interest, and you're actually enjoying being a part of it, it shows. They know it. I know over Zoom, it's difficult. You have to make a contact within an hour. You maximum have that amount of time, but then it really shows if you're interested. So show your interest. One thing that I did was, personally, I practiced a lot. I did not join any recruitment groups or anything like interview prep groups, but yes, I sat down with my friends, just a couple of questions. It's basically a regular job interview, but with the medical background. So they want to know if you're literally going to be a part of their family for next 3-4 years. You're joining them as a component of their program. They will be investing their resources, their time, their doctors and everybody in you. So they want to groom you. And from there onwards, you will be taking their name on. So you have to fit. So that's very important. The other thing I would say is that pre-interview research. So know yourself and know your program. Anything on your CV that's there, you have sent it out. Any timeline that you've put in, you need to know everything about that. So you need to answer things without looking at your resume. You need to tell your story and be very crisp, be very concise with your answers. It's very important, because Initially, in the first couple of interviews, you will be very nervous. I was nervous. I have done a lot of public speaking myself, but I was still very nervous because my job was at stake there. But then again, be very precise, be very concise with your answers. Tell me about yourself is the make or break for an interview. Honestly, we don't invest a lot of time in it, but that's the most important question of the entire interview. You are there because they have read you, they have selected you, they are considering you to be a part of your program. You don't have to sell yourself academically. Now it's just the time that you have to tell them that, okay, I am going to be a good candidate for your program. You can think about investing in me. So it's very important. Again, just enjoy yourself. Thank you letters, talking to your program coordinators. I mean, now we're starting the interview season. Our coordinators are also on board. They're asking us what was the make or break for us. So we're telling them, be nice to residents, ask good questions and appropriate questions. Asking questions is always appreciated, but asking something for the sake of asking, it shouldn't be that way. So you need to research first and then ask questions. If something is already on the website and you have not read about it and you're just asking a question, that just shows that you have not put in enough effort and you're not interested. You're just asking for the sake of asking. So please be very cautious of these things. And again, I would say that smile, be nice, be personable, and just enjoy. If you're enjoying yourself, it shows. And we all match. I had a dream of matching into a university program as an IMG, and I made it to my first choice. I mean, I applied for the first time. It's very doable. They're there to take you. You're there. If they have called you for the interview, you're already in the door. Now you have to make and claim your seat there. So that's about it.
That was excellent. Jazakallah. This is great. This is really informative. We can certainly open up for questions. If you have questions, you can type it in the chat box. I see people here who raised their hand. Okay, we can do that too. We'll start with Anas Hussein.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everybody. So I'm a doctor from India and I applied for the residency match this year. I had a couple of questions. My first question is, would you recommend sending letters of interest to the programs? And additionally, the other question is, a colleague of mine recommended to send to mail physical copies of my application to the programs. So would you recommend doing that?
I'll defer that to Dr. Zubair, Syed.
No, I would not recommend sending physical copies at all. It's not helpful at all. Majority of the times, they don't even come or reach us in time or in a reasonable amount in that sense. What is reasonable to do and is appropriate to do is that, after a certain amount of time, and that could be anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks once you've started the application process. If you don't get an invite from a particular program, then you can email them. And you can email them, you can email the program coordinators, you can email the program directors, you can email some of the residency leadership and ask to see if your application was reviewed or not. Majority of the time, I would say almost 99 to 100% of the time, somebody out of that group will evaluate and review just your application. And then it depends on what your application looks like. I mean, in all fairness, what Dr. Syed talked about, what Dr. Ahmed talked about, what the PGY1s, what Madiha and Dr. Fatima talked about. On the other end of the spectrum where we look at applications, we get enormous amount of applications. I'll give you an example. We have only 14 PGY1 positions, and I get over 1,600 applications. I'm sure, like for Zahid, for the IM program, it's probably about 2,000-3,000 applications. And then we have our specific filters and our specific sort of cutoffs, which we put through so that it's at least manageable from our end. But basically, to answer your question shortly, no to physical copies, yes to emails. But again, emails, not that you bombard everybody every day or every other day, but within a reasonable amount of time. And at least that'll get your application reviewed.
Thank you, Jazakallah.
Oh, yeah.
Lubna Khanum, did you have a question?
Assalamu alaikum, ma'am. Assalamu alaikum, everyone here. Jazakumullahu khairan for your time and organizing this. So my question is, due to COVID, I'm an IMG. I'm living in Seattle, Washington, and I'm an IM residency applicant. And due to COVID, we could not get a lot of hands-on US clinical experience. So how do the program directors look at it? Because inpatient experience is very important for an IM applicant. And how do we answer questions related to that? That is my question.
Anyone on the Dr. Zahid Ahmed, do you want to tackle that?
Yeah, it's a difficult situation because, yes, you're right. There's less hands-on experience since COVID started. I guess you have to just, say it like that we have, I was not able to have as much experience because of this. And I don't know, Dr. Zubair may have, and Dr. either Dr. Syed may have a little bit more insight than I do about this.
Well, you're absolutely right. You just say it the way it is. It is what it is. And you're not the only person, like US grads, US seniors have gone through the same thing. Our current PGY1 class had a huge deficit. They were not able to go in for certain rotations, and it's no fault of their own. Essentially. And so, but then on the flip side of it, you've got to figure out what did you do in that time, right? So did you do any QIs from home? Did you do any research from? So you got to be able to fill that time and say, because of COVID, I wasn't able to do hospital rotations, but this is what I did. Meanwhile, sorry, Dr. Syed, do you want to?
Yes, doctor.
No, I agree. I mean, I think everybody, the programs are very understanding because of COVID. So I think it's just, you just have to show that you're still interested in the program and you've done everything on your end possible to make yourself a great candidate.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Dr. Sorry.
Oh, okay, one last question. Sorry, we have half a dozen questions to get through. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. I just want to ask, is it advisable to mention, you have told that we can volunteer any information, but is it advisable to mention that you're married or something like that, some personal information? How professional is it? Or is it as advisable? I want to know the opinion of the residents and the program directors who are interviewing us. How would you look at a person sharing their personal information during the interview?
Well, the reality is everyone is sharing some personal information during the interview, right? Because it's a personal interview. It's a question of what boundaries do you want to set? And more importantly, it's what is important to you, okay? If your life journey has to deal with your spouse or your kids or whatever it is, if that's part of your story, then tell it. If it has to do with your religion, tell it. It's okay. It's not that these are topics to avoid 100%. It's more that the interviewer is not allowed to ask these questions directly. You can bring it up, and if it's important to you, it should be discussed. It's okay. You want to show that you're a complete human being.
Okay, thank you.
One thing I wanted to add quickly is that there are people that couples match too. So then they do want to know, because that also affects kind of their application as well.
I'll just add one little point to that. That's absolutely right. As long as, as Dr. Ahmed said, you bring it up and you have questions about that. 2 years ago, one of our applicants asked about Jummah prayers. Like, can I get time off for Friday prayers? And we said, yeah, we'll make it happen. He's a chief resident right now. So it's 3 years down the road and he gets that. So absolutely, unless you ask, it won't happen.
Okay, there are a few questions here in the chat box. My clinical electives and USCE was in surgical specialties, but I am now more interested in IM and MedPeds. Would my experience count for something, or should I get USCE with an IM as well? Who wants to take that?
I can answer it, but not specifically. Your clinical electives and USC was in surgical. Help me out. USCE again? What is USCE?
US clinical experience.
Clinical experience.
Oh, was in US clinical experience. Okay. Again, this goes back to, acronyms and things that we know and we don't. My electives were, and I'm not interested, would my experience count for something, or should I get clinical experience within IM as well? It's always helpful if you have clinical experience within that particular specialty. I would think that, because again, when we're looking at an application and everything sort of talks about surgical stuff, it ends up being sort of, why is this applicant now going into IM, when everything that they've done so far talks about surgery as such. So yeah, either you have a good story to explain that in your personal statement, or you should get some experience in that particular specialty.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. I completed my international residency in emergency medicine, applying for residency this year in UTSouthwestern. How many programs look for changing specialty from emergency to internal medicine or family medicine? Thank you. Dr. Zubair, do you want to address that?
Yeah, I'm just reading the question.
Not really.
Look for changing specialties for EM to IM or FM. Again, on the interview, once you get an interview, the question's going to come up. Why you're changing from one to the other? It's not a deal breaker at all in that sense, but you better have a good story as to why you want to change specialties, because this is something that you've done or may have done for many years. We've had applicants that were surgeons in their previous lives, and then they decided to get a change of pace and become family docs, and that was absolutely okay. Nothing wrong with that. But again, it all boils down to what your story ends up being and how you actually project that story.
Quick question, Dr. Zubair Syed. Is it too late to apply right now? Where are we in the application cycle?
No, it's not too late to apply right now. IRAS just opened September 29th. So you're only about 3 weeks late, sort of, and that's okay. Most programs will still continue to review your applications at least till like mid-December and sort of go from there. Yes.
Okay. Question, I'd like to know your opinion about reaching out through social media like Facebook or LinkedIn. I would not recommend it. Please don't do that. I would just find the program director's email address through the website or email the program coordinator. I think that's probably the best way rather than going through social media. What do you look for in medical students who are doing away rotations at your home institution? Dr. Nilofar and Dr. Zahid, what are you looking for when you have someone who's not a UTSouthwestern medical student doing a rotation with you guys? How can they shine?
Well, I have had teams, I have had plenty of ward teams and consult teams that have medical students that are outside of UTSouthwestern. And it's almost the same criteria as the interview things. You know, we're looking to see, will they fit in? Do they take feedback? Do they grow during the rotation? So if the first day they're not able to present the patient, you know, quite the way that we expect, that's okay. It's just the first day. And you know, I would give them feedback and say, you know, you could present it in this logical order. And then I see, will they present it in that logical order the next day or the next week or whatever? And sometimes they don't. And so that would be a bad sign, you know, that this person can't take some basic feedback and build upon that. But that's the kind of thing I look for. I don't, Dr. Syed, you can comment on what you
yeah. So I think one thing is very important too, is that if you're doing an away rotation at another institution and you're interested in going to that institution for the residency, you want to really shine, you know, and you want to do as much as possible to really make yourself stand out, because they're going to be seeing how they work well, you know, if they work well with you or not. And so that could also backfire, you know, if you're there for a month and they don't really like to work with you, then they might actually not want to take you as a, you know, candidate. So you have to show that you're doing research, showing your interest, you know, and just really showing that you're somebody that they can work with. That's what it comes down to it.
Okay. Let's see, how do we answer the question, tell me about yourself? I think we've kind of gone over that. I'd like to just say, be prepared, be over prepared rather than under prepared. Some interviews last 10 minutes at programs, some interview lasts 30 minutes. And so a lot of interviews are peppered with, tell me about yourself. And that's essentially your time to have your personal narrative down and highlight your education accomplishments in a very succinct fashion and still staying humble and not arrogant. The last thing also I'd like to just mention is treat every program you're interviewing as your number one program. Even your backup program that you don't want to go to, treat it as number one program. You don't know what's going to happen in the match. You also know that, I think Dr. Zubair can comment on this as well, program directors know each other and they talk. And if you don't really come off very well or too arrogant at one program, it's a large pool, but it's also a small pool. So be on with each program interview that you're at.
We all have our own listservs as well.
Yes.
About all the time. Yes. And that especially gets very busy during recruitment time. So yes, that's very right, Dr. Ahmed.
Okay. As I have done OBGYN fellowship for 4 years, will I get some advantage if I apply in family medicine?
Yes and no. And I say that ambiguously because yes, if you've done an OB fellowship, you'll still have to go through everything that is required by ACGME for a family medicine program. It's just that you'll be a bit more comfortable in the OB part. So because it's an outside fellowship, you're not going to get any credit for it in that sense. So it's not going to give you an advantage, but it's not a disadvantage either. You'll still have to do everything that you'd expect it to do.
I am an IMG and have done fellowship 4 years in Pakistan in OBGYN and have old YOG. I don't know what a YOG is. How can I overcome with that and able to get interview invite?
Year of graduation.
Oh, okay.
So that's sort of the elephant in the room question, really. And I think in reality, what ends up happening is two things. One, it's sort of personal contacts or just knowing somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody and trying to get a good word in, number one. And then number two, if you're from a particular med school, and I think somebody mentioned that earlier, I'm not sure who, but if you're from a particular med school and you already have residents in that residency from your med school, that's really the best way to do it, is to then ask them to try to contact the program director or the program coordinator and ask them to see if they can review your application or not. So the question really, it's a very true issue. It's a very real issue, but really for that, something like that, even to get your application reviewed, it all boils down to contacts, I feel.
I am an IMG and so is my husband. Is it advisable to apply individually or as a couple? That's actually a good question. What do you suggest for the IMGs who are thinking about couples matching? I'm not sure. That's a very good question. Dr. Zubair, we'll let you take this one.
It depends on you, really. I think, at the end of the day, I don't think that there is an advantage to not couples matching if it's going to create an undue burden over a long period of time, depending on what specialty you're going into. And programs are usually pretty accommodative. We talk with each other quite a lot. I mean, I get emails from all the other specialties at UTSouthwestern, and I send them emails because we get couples matches so much. And so we correspond quite a bit to see if one person is a good applicant and they're being considered or not. So I think if it was me, I would couples match. And because again, it's a huge personal issue, ends up being also that you're separate 2 or 3 years or even longer if you need, if that's how it ends up being. So personally, I would not bother to match separately.
Does the program know how many times you have applied for residency? Is that on the application somewhere, or that's a question we're getting?
No, I don't think we do.
Okay.
Sometimes it may happen that we'll remember the applicant from last year and we may have interviewed them already, but usually no, we don't know if you had an attempt.
Okay, so let's say you do not match during, we do not match during this cycle. Is it appropriate to email the program director to get feedback on how to improve the application?
I think it is. The chances that you're going to get a response back is pretty slim in the big picture. But I mean, I won't speak for Dr. Syed and Dr. Ahmad, but it's fine. Sometimes we do answer back. Most times, in all fairness, we will not. It's busy enough as it is. So I apologize if that comes across as insensitive, but it is the reality.
So maybe email residents instead, perhaps. You might get a better chance at a response if you email residents that you know in that program or who may have interviewed you, or the chief resident.
Yes, and that would probably be, yeah, that would probably be a better way to do it. You're right.
Okay. I know we're running over and there are people that have to leave. Dr. Madiha left, but she left her Twitter handle on here. If you need to log off, that's fine. I think we can go for maybe 5 to 10 more minutes if there are still other questions here. How significant is year of graduation in terms of being a filter? I think Dr. Zubair had addressed this already. Let's see, let me go through. Abdul Rab Hakim Muhammad, you had a question?
Yes, doctor. My question was, thanks for they already addressed. And one more thing is, like, I completed my emergency medicine residency, which is a collaborative program from USA. So my university was George Washington University. So I'm eligible for fellowship here, like toxicology simulation, but I'm not eligible to practice because I will not get a license as an emergency medicine physician. So what they're telling me is, like, complete subspecialty fellowship in toxicology and become a toxicologist. But some of my seniors, they said, like, it doesn't, it's not so good as an emergency medicine physician. So what I was trying to do is to change my specialty, or I either should take specialty like fellowships, or just what is my best option for me to do it right now? Because getting into emergency medicine is like they are not considering IMGs.
I can take that if that's okay. So you're basically going into a non-accredited fellowship, from what I'm understanding, right? You finished your fellowship outside, and now you're in a non-accredited or even an accredited fellowship that is now allowed, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So the way to sort of pivot would be to finish what you're doing, but do such a good job and get really good letters that and make contacts so that you're actually able to go into, it may not be emergency medicine, and you're absolutely right, that's a very hard competitive field to get into, but anything else that might be something else you may be comfortable going into, which means you're going back into a residency after doing the fellowship. And I know this is sort of a backwards way of doing it, but I've known people that have actually gone through that. They've completed an IM residency outside, and then they've actually come over here and did a nephrology fellowship. And then after finishing nephrology fellowships, then they went and did IM residency. It's sort of completely backwards, but there are ways and there are tracks to be able to do that. So if emergency medicine is competitive, and it is, you may just have to sort of redirect what you want to do and maybe get into a different residency.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thanks for that. I actually still not in the fellowship, but what I was thinking is getting family medicine, and family medicine has a lot of fellowship opportunities. Like I do fellowship in urgent care, emergency medicine, toxicology also. So family medicine is, I think it is more, has more advancement, more fellowship options, and all age groups. So should I like focus on family medicine right now and finish the residency, or complete like 2 or 3 years of fellowship and then go back to, again, I don't know how competitive or at that time what they will consider. So what should be the best option for me?
It's a personal choice. I cannot tell you what to do and what not to do. Essentially, in that sense, you're right. You know, within family medicine, you do have a whole bunch of opportunities down the road. It all depends on how you want to pivot or not. So that's a personal choice.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we'll have time for one last question. We have Ahmed Mujadat. You have your hand raised.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
So my question is, most of us, we answer questions based on what we know and like our sincere answers. I want to just know, is it okay if we talk about our like attempt if they ask us, so what happened that you have an attempt on your step 1 or step 2? Is it okay if we say we just tried our best and it didn't work out? Is that a wrong answer to answer, or is there something particular they are looking for?
No, that is not a wrong answer. You tried your best, didn't happen. You came back and you did much better, and that shows grit, in my opinion, and that shows that you have the ability to learn from all the mistakes that you made in the first place. So now, what ends up being a red flag is multiple attempts. Most programs will overlook one attempt if your subsequent score is decent, but if you've got more than one attempt, unfortunately, most of the time that ends up being a deal breaker.
Okay, so another thing is
you probably won't get an interview at that point.
Okay, so if it's just one attempt and you don't have step 3, does that like filter you out automatically, or you can still be considered?
I'm sorry, I missed the middle part. If you have one attempt and you don't have
just one attempt, but you don't have step 3, you've not done step 3 at the time of application, but you're still preparing for it, does that filter you out automatically, or is step 3 like a plus for you?
No. Step 3 is not. First of all, step 3 isn't required. Some programs may, and that's where you have to do your due diligence for each program. But step 3 technically is not required to for an interview as such. What is required, at least for us in family medicine, in our is that by the time the rank order list has to be certified, you have to be ECFMG certified. You've got your step 1, step 2, and like now there's no CS anymore, but you have to have that done. We will not rank anybody, and I think most programs do this also. They will not rank applicants if your application is not complete, because then that creates a huge risk for the programs and leaving things unfulfilled. If you match and you're not credentialed and you're not certified, then that's a problem for us.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, I think we will conclude. I think we've answered the majority of questions. I'd like to thank everybody on the panel for their time, their excellent responses. I think this was very, very insightful. It was very thorough. Jazakallah, especially Dr. Zubair Syed, thank you for staying late. Thank you, Dr. Zahid Ahmed. Thank you, Dr. Nilofar Syed. Thank you to our excellent residents, Dr. Madiha and Dr. Fatima. I mean, you guys are really inspiring. I love the optimism and the positivity. And, and lastly, but not least, like make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That's ultimately who makes these decisions and gets you residencies and whatnot. So with that, we'll conclude. I think this will be on our YouTube channel. So please, you can log in if you want copies of the PowerPoint slides, or if there's something that we missed. And then if you have additional questions, please email amwpa.org. Okay, Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.